Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. In the recent, we've seen the comments come from the Prime Minister of India in Ladakh. We've seen the rather inflammatory comments when he speaks on the relations between India and Pakistan. There's clearly, there were hopes earlier perhaps of thawing in the relationship between Pakistan and India. Of course, we saw a lot of remarks, a lot of inflammatory content during elections and during the campaign. But after the third time election of the Indian Prime Minister, these remarks having come so soon have their own significance. We'll be talking about the ramifications of this on Pakistan-India relations and what this can mean for the future. Of course, Pakistan has always maintained a rather tried to maintain a rather cordial relationship with India. But there seems to be, in the wake of the kind of extremism that has come through the Modi leadership, through the Modi-led India, this seems to be a new low in that direction. What can we expect in the future? What kind of a relationship can Pakistan have with India during this tenure of Narendra Modi? All of that today on Perspective. I have with me Brigadier Retired Dr. Tughral Yamin. Thank you so much for joining us today. He's a senior analyst, also a defense analyst. Dr. Jamil Ahmed Khan, who's a former ambassador. Thank you for being with us today. Dr. Adnan Sarwar Khan, who is an IR expert and foreign affairs expert. Thank you for joining us today. Dr. Tughral, let me start off with you. Like you were earlier saying, we were talking about what's the significance of these remarks. How do you look at it? Because, it is true that when there is election, when there is campaign, a lot is said. And there may be, some of those things are perhaps just electioneering and politicking. But now for these remarks to come, how would you look at them?
In my opinion, Hindutva is in the DNA of Narendra Modi. Okay. He cannot help himself but pile abuse against Pakistan, which is unfortunate. We are a neighboring country and we want peace with India, despite the fact that we have an outstanding issue with India, that is Kashmir. Our Prime Minister and his elder brother both sent congratulatory messages to Mr. Modi on his elections, although his response on X, formerly Twitter, was subdued or restrained. But still, these were messages which meant to show that we wanted to have a new beginning with you and we do not want to tread the same paths of mutual accusations and fighting with each other. But these remarks were uncalled for, and saying that Pakistan is a sponsor of terrorism, this is a very old accusation that Modi and indeed most Indian politicians make against Pakistan. I don't know if Rahul Gandhi comes into power, would he fall into the same trap or not? But usually the Indian leaders play to the domestic gallery. Okay. And Modi, being Modi, is one of the front runners in Pakistan bashing. So don't expect much out of him, unfortunately.
Let me come back to you. Dr. Jamil, if you heard what Dr. Tughral is saying, do you think that this is by far a policy that is maintained consistently by the state of India, or do you think it's just perhaps it is, some of it is because Modi is Modi, and like Tughral Sahab also said, he is known for his Hindutva agenda overall. How would you look at that situation at this time? Is it just is it going to be, let's put it this way, the policy of India during his tenure, or do you think there's hope for Pakistan-India relations?
Modi is Modi because Modi has been conditioned and groomed in an environment of RSS, starting from his age of 17 or 16. So that conditioning still goes with them. And of course, the government formed by BJP, that is propelled with the power of RSS. And RSS goes back into the history in first quarter of the 19th century. With that in the background, if Modi had passed these remarks during his campaign, probably that could have been tolerated. But Modi, after attaining the third term of his tenure as a prime minister, and if he passes these remarks, which demonstrate one thing, and that is that he does not like to have a better relation with the neighboring countries, particularly with Pakistan. And the reasons being that if they have a good relation with Pakistan, then the very concept and the idea and the ideology of RSS that diminishes or that is diluted. Pakistan has nothing to do with their internal affairs. They can have their own RSS propelled government and Modi's conditioning, whatever it was, and it has been, that is fine enough for Pakistan, so long as India does not really enter into these kind of propaganda, and so long as India in Kashmir, the way they abrogated Article 370 and Article 35 of their own constitution, and in a territory where Pakistan is a party in a way that it's a disputed territory, and it's recognized by the United Nations in not one resolution, more than about 6, 7 resolutions. So from that standpoint, Pakistan, of course, stands always with the Kashmiri people. And Kashmiri people, because there's so much of atrocities, there's so much of human rights violation. It's not only Pakistan, which has furnished 131 pages of dossier to the United Nations, but it's the Human Rights Commission, Human Rights Council Commission and Commissioner. So all what we've been discussing in your show or in some other shows and whatever literature we have around the world, that commissioner's report, the HR Human Rights Commissioner report, it contains all those things. So that is what our contention is. That's what our problem is. We only say that, okay, that this violation of international law, which has taken place by the Modi regime, by the BJP regime, that abrogation is illegal. So let's restore it. That gives a special status, which was agreed between the Raja of the Kashmir and the Indian government, and also Pakistan was okay.
Jamil Sahab, I'll come back to you. Let me go include Dr. Adnan Sarwar in the conversation. I'll come back to you. Ji, Dr. Adnan, can you hear me?
Yes, of course.
There is one of, something that Jamil Sahab, Ambassador Jamil mentioned when we talk about the region at this time. We, of course, in one sense, the remarks that Narendra Modi has made are not, very surprising. Of course, he's always been, his content has always been extremely inflammatory. It's always been anti-Pakistan state also. But in terms of what's happening in the region at this time, with Afghanistan, with India also, we look at China also, for these remarks to come at this time, at this juncture in time, don't you think it's extremely significant?
Yes, that's right. In fact, overall, Modi's whole trend of policy, particularly towards Pakistan, has been very, very aggressive. And his narrative is aggressive ever since he has come into power. He plays on that, and in fact, you see, in 2019, the violation of the international law that Jamil Sahab was also saying also was something which was very dramatic, and he was bent upon doing it. And probably he knew that if he does that, he would be the one who would be known as Savior. And Indians had been saying earlier on that it was historic wrong which got corrected. Very, very wrong propaganda, because it's on the agenda of the United Nations. And it is an international dispute, and the Indians are supposed to be talking to Pakistan on the UN administrated plebiscite for the right of self-determination of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And I would here add something that it is not that much surprising, because you see, number one, that he wanted to show to the world and to the Indians right in the beginning of his third term that Indians under him had been very strong and they can thwart any kind of adventure, as they would call it, or misadventure by Pakistan on their areas into the north of Kashmir, Kargil, Ladakh area. But then you see the point is that propaganda actually is also to further get started his third term on a very populist base, which is at the expense of regional peace. But I would here also connect it with the recent US bill which aims to boost India's defense against Pakistan and China. And there you see they have been intending to have two parts of it. The US Senator Marco Rubio, who is a Republican, that won against China, and the second is obviously that from Pakistan there are threats to India of this nature, that nature, terrorism. Now, what kind of a terrorism? Kashmiris have the right under the United Nations to wage a struggle of independence, which they have been doing it. Pakistan, since the days of Jamil Musharraf, banned all those kinds of parties which had been collecting funds actually for the people of occupied Kashmir for the sustenance of their struggle. That also was stopped, since 2004 on the sidelines of the 12th SAARC summit. So the world knows it, that to which extent Pakistan had gone. Then the CBMs and the General Musharraf's 4-point formula and his all-out, even going out of the box solution from the United Nations resolution.
Let me come back to you on this. Ji, Dr. Adnan, let me come back to you. Dr. Tughral, you heard what Dr. Adnan is saying. He's talking about, our history also. He's talking about, of course, you also mentioned as far as Kashmir is concerned. We haven't said anything that is not clearly in, that legal in the sense of United Nations and, their charter and what our rights are with regard to Kashmir and what Kashmiris themselves want, what their right to self-determination is. The question is with Afghanistan and of course, we have also been dealing with challenges in the terrorism department. With India being hostile the way that it is being, do you think that the world also, of course, America and this region is extremely important because of its geostrategic position. Do you think it's going to cause eyebrows to be raised elsewhere in the world? Or it's something that is just,
I don't think that the world at large is interested in Kashmir. Okay. Most of the world thinks that Kashmir is a frozen conflict and nothing is going to become of it, and India is a big economic power and it is better to have good relations with India rather than Pakistan. But there are quarters where you have sympathy for Pakistan. For example, in Turkey, Turk's President Erdogan is very clear. He said, I'm not going to have any kind of defense relationship with India. He is very clear. So in the OIC also Pakistan gets a good hearing, and even in the United Nations when you talk about human rights abuses, etc., people do listen to you, but nobody is really bothered about Kashmiris. Nobody is bothered about Palestine as it happens. Nobody is bothered about the Muslims anywhere in the world where they are being suppressed or where their blood is being spilled. So the same is the case with Kashmir.
But in terms of where we are with regard to India, as far as the next 3-4 years are concerned, there was once a hope that we could perhaps have a trade relationship. We could perhaps, have some working relationship across the border. Those are now, they seem not to, it doesn't seem like they're going to materialize.
You're absolutely right. Unfortunately, under Modi's watch, and this is the third time as the Prime Minister, our relationship have worsened. Our relationship has never been good. It's bad or worse or worse. So in his time, under his watch, it has been worst. He's not willing to talk to you. All kinds of relationship is broken. Our embassy staff has been downsized. We are not talking at any forum at all. So that's what Modi is. Unfortunately, Pakistan wants to talk, but India under Modi is not willing to talk.
Yes. And that's going to have its own. Let me include Jamil Sab. Jamil Sab, there is, going to be in terms of what our relationship is, for example, China and China's and Pakistan's relationship? The constant, of course, we've had issues with sabotage, we've had issues as far as Setback is concerned, as far as the interference that comes through Afghanistan is concerned. We've also had, India has also interfered in that sense in other countries now also. Do you think that image of India that was, you know, the secular India or the peace-loving India, that was a facade that was being built, has been effectively tarnished under Modi's leadership?
The world recognizes that, and the U.S. Recent report about freedom of religion, religious freedom, I know that also includes what we are discussing about it. Obviously, that the secular India, that is a bygone kind of story under the Modi regime. And once some other regime comes in, probably they will take some time to repair that damage which has been caused to the Indian society. And the Indian scholars, they themselves recognize and acknowledge that. But let's come back to that point. You know, Pakistan has been very straightforward and in resonating its message to the world community and India as well. See what MOFA had responded to Modi's this statement, Modi's speech of on the anniversary of Cargo. Instead, the Foreign Office was very clear. They mentioned about what is the cause, which I have already mentioned, that is the 370 abrogation of their own article of the Constitution, and we are a party. That's why we raised that point. And second is about the fact that they've been always having Modi and its cabinet. They've been using the word, they've been threatening Pakistan. And on that MOPA, yesterday, our foreign ministry has very clearly said that, yes, there is a freeze in our relations after the August 2019, 5th August 2019. But we'll continue if India shows its inclination. We would be very willing to accept that, and we'll venture into again some of those efforts which would be like a CBM or like a composite dialogue, the Musharraf time, the 4 points of the Musharraf time. Pakistan is quite open, and Pakistan has opened its card. But the fact of the matter is that Indians, they are still, you know, under that very impression of their Hindutva and its RSS ideology, and they have created a complete environment where, and then also MOFA has very clearly mentioned in its statement yesterday that we would definitely respond to any misadventure, and that is where if we look at it at a bigger canvas, if we look at it at the geopolitical situation of the world may not be concerned about the Kashmiri Muslims as they are not concerned about Palestine, as they are not concerned elsewhere about the bloodletting of the people in these countries. But they are definitely concerned that these are the two nuclear powers. And if this conflict continues, and if India does any misadventure, then in that case, there are all the chances and danger of any of these countries using nuclear. And the world cannot oppose it. The world cannot oppose it at all. We all understand that if anywhere in any part of the world, if it happens, the nuclear device is used, then the entire world is wrapped into it. So within 7 days, the world entire climate changes, and the fireball goes right about 57 miles into the nautical miles into the air, and it contaminates the entire world within 7 days. So world just cannot afford it, and that is where they are concerned. But they're not concerned about Kashmiri, how they are marginalized. Modi, this rhetoric about the terrorism, about the proxy war, and you just heard about other guests about the U.S. senator who was the presidential candidate. Also, Marco, that what he was mentioning, speaking in fact the language of the Indian the Prime Minister, it means that Indians have made that lobby and they have really submitted that bill. So, and at the bigger canvas, why India is now showing this attitude. India, on one side, is a very strong ally of US, and US foreign policy, one of the topmost priorities of the foreign policy, the containment of China on one side. India, while they are taking all the advantages of containment of China, they are directing their efforts toward Pakistan. And their aid and their support, whatever is given to them, and all the agreements which they have with the United States, they are not directed towards Pakistan, right? That is directed towards the containment in whatever shape, including for the first time, Indians have given their base, Gujarat base, which is although under the job of logistic base, but there are operational activities going on, and they can activate that. A lot of things happening around at the geopolitical scene. What Netanyahu has said in the joint Congress session in the United States, if we connect the nexus between the Israel and India, Israel has been supporting India and has been giving them some of the capacity building training for unleashing their atrocities on the Kashmiris. That is what the literature says. Coming back about Afghanistan, you mentioned about Afghanistan. Yes, Indians have allocated maximum budget of their intelligence towards Afghanistan and then towards directing those terrorists in Afghanistan, directing them towards Pakistan to conduct operations. Do we think that
No, and I'm going to, on that point, I think I'll take Dr. Sarwar's opinion also. Dr. Sarwar, there is, of course, like the Ministry of Foreign Affairs have said, that we are extreme, always ready, and we are, of course, cognizant of all the dangers that are posed by a hostile neighbor like India. But do you think that, in terms of the situation between Pakistan and India, we need to be, at this time, things can, potentially escalate at all? Of course, India also realizes that we're a nuclear state, and we know that, a lot of it is just hyperbole. And would you agree with that?
Yes, I think that as the Foreign Office has very rightly and very wisely and in a very thoughtful manner has said that, well, while you see Pakistan has all that capability to repulse, God forbid, any misadventure from the Indian side in its latest jingoism. But, overall, it has been very finely balanced, I would say, when I was reading this content of the Foreign Office, that they stand for regional peace and that they are expecting that India would cooperate. But as my other colleagues in the panel today also have been voicing their concern that under the present government in India, it is quite unlikely that that would have path of friendship towards Pakistan, because one thing is that Modi, since you see he has not got two-third majority, and that political alliance named as India itself has got almost the same number or has reached near it, which BJP has got. So I think in order to garner the general Indian support against any re-emergence of India further into the politics, he wants to divert the attention of the Indian people towards this and wanted to enlist also something that actually was a military achievement from Pakistan side, or the circumstances that were there. Yet you see, because of the political reasons and the international pressure, the two countries always, particularly Pakistan being a smaller one, it knows that wars are not at all good. So I think that in such kind of a situation, diplomacy and statesmanship is required. And if Modi wants to bring to the fore to the world that it is Pakistan, well, it is not Pakistan. They cannot link actually, technically or legally, the attacks, as they call, of the terrorists from the Pakistani side, killing in this year 12 Indian soldiers, the last one being yesterday. This is their native and genuine struggle. Everybody has realized that in the world of legal, where legal side also is considered the most. So the point is that this is just in order to put a pressure, because they very very clearly know that Afghanistan is also not, trying to stop its incursions in the sense of stopping support to the TTP, and that Pakistan therefore could be cornered. But inshallah, God willing, Pakistan has been doing almost everything to restrain itself and to offer the process of negotiations, which has been long overdue. But I think I would be a little optimistic despite this aggressive attitude, that finally better sense may prevail after some 4 or 5 years, months, initial months of Modi in power, because India also cannot afford a war with the very valiant armed forces of Pakistan. They know it very well. But at the same time, the Pakistani society and the Pakistani political parties also have to be standing shoulder by shoulder by the armed forces of Pakistan, and they also have to be knowing that what the most aggressive country against Pakistan has been saying. So the head chat inside has to be buried, and the terrorist attack. In fact, we are the victims of terrorism, and what they have been doing through the various directions.
This counter narrative, let me include Tughral Sahib, I'll come back to you. I think you very rightly mentioned this, that we are actually the victims of terrorism. True. That comes from across the border. Also, Afghan soil is used, and we know that. We have proof of it. We have cases in point, whether it's Kulbhushan Yadav, it's right there, the history. We've given dossiers also, all of that. But the question is, do you think that counter narrative, our counter narrative, in your opinion, do you think it's strong enough to permeate into the world against India? Because, even though we are victims and we have proof of it, do you think we've been able to put it out there enough or convincingly?
I think we are doing our best. Our Foreign Office is making the correct kind of sounds. Our Foreign Office spokesman, Mumtaz Sara Baloch, has always been a very effective and articulate representative of the government. Our statesmen have also been very, very forthright. They have been giving a very balanced kind of response to whatever India is saying, and world at large understands that Pakistan does not want war. And we also understand, as Adnan Sarwar is saying, that India also does not want a war. And then if we see in the regional context, India is up against Pakistan and China. India had a very nasty scuffle with the Chinese border guards a few years ago, in which the Indian border guards were killed with fisticuffs and clubs. So they could not do anything there. So they understand that Pakistan and China are one. Pakistan is a nuclear armed country. Its conventional forces are strong, and they will be able to give India a bloody nose. We know what happened with Kulbhushan Yadav also, and Abhinandan also. Yes. His aircraft was downed, and then he was very magnanimously returned. So Indians know that they cannot intrude into our territory without getting a very sound response. So the world understands, India understands, this is what Modi is doing, and what he has been doing is he's playing to the domestic gallery. He's although we all know that the elections are over, what is he trying to do?
But do you think it also has to do with the fact that when we look at his popularity, it seems to have
subsided.
It seems to have subsided, and maybe it's a reaction to his policies, which have always been, anti-minorities, there have been extremism. So maybe it's his attempt to, again, perhaps play to those audience that he feels are his supporters.
He wants to come across as a strong man. He wants to come across as a person with a 56-inch chest. He has been saying that. But unfortunately, that is not how you conduct foreign policy. You have to have flexibility. You must talk to your worst enemies also. Exactly. So Modi Sahib should do it. What else can I say?
Fair enough. Ambassador Sahab, of course, one should have the ability to deal with those, across the border. We are neighbors, whether hostile or not, in a graceful manner. And we, of course, know that Modi clearly lacks that. But in terms of his domestic situation within India, let's talk about that. We've seen the elections happen now. Yes, Modi was able to form government, but we also know that it wasn't what he had hoped for in terms of the results of the elections. Do you think a lot of his posturing, again, like Tughral Sahab here is saying, and a lot of his, policies that are earlier that were, not only interference in Pakistani soil, but in other states also, and within his policies within the country, the domestic policies within India, are characterized by the failure that we've seen. And what he's doing now is perhaps also that posturing to deal with that failure so soon after the elections. Ambassador Sahab? Ji. I can't hear you. You need to unmute. Ambassador Sahab, you need to unmute.
Indian domestic politics basically is definitely driven by the polarization which has been created by the leaders, their leaders like Modi, right? So since it's polarized society, but that those swing votes, those people who are youngsters, and those people, the youngsters normally go and try and have inclined towards the justice. That's what is happening in the Palestine processions all over the world. That's what is happening among the Jews, who the youth of that is against the killing of the Palestinians. So this is what has happened, in my view, in India during the election. That's why he could not have 3/4 majority, which Modi was expecting that. If he had 3/4 of majority, things would have even been more serious. Now, coming back on Modi's statement and Modi's this rhetoric, he does not have much choice, because he is addressing a polarized constituency all over the India, which he has created over a time, based on religion, based on marginalization, based on class differences. So all those discriminations which he created, though he has been able to create his vote bank, which could take him to the prime minister seat, but at the same time, he has lost some of the popularity. And my understanding is, gradually with Rahul Gandhi there, and the Congress would give a tough time subsequently. They have started giving a tough time. They had given a tough time during the election, and in the assembly they are giving very tough time. That once it resonates to the Indian society, so those swing votes, those people who were double-minded, those people who were scared of RSS propelled BJP government, their their fear would start diminishing, their fear would start reducing, and after that, this Indian polarization might as well subside. And it would be that stage and that time that we can expect that Indians would then go back to those 4 points which we had offered, and which we had progressed a lot. We had also offered them, and we had progressed a lot in the composite dialogue. We had progressed a lot in the backdoor diplomacy. We had progressed a lot in offering and getting those points agreed to the international community and as well as Indian. But then because of Modi, that won't work. And this is what yesterday, MOFA, this our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they mentioned that we have all these approaches and planning in place, which we have already used them, and we can resume if India, whenever India would like to. My understanding is during Modi's regime, even after 6 months or whatever number of years is spent, because of his RSS-based or RSS-propelled constituency, probably that would not happen unless the opposition, Rahul Gandhi, asserts the pressure and mobilizes people around for the discrimination of all kind, including religious discrimination. So that's what is. But then more important thing is we were discussing about the way we can assert pressure. Only those submission of the dossier through an administrative mechanism, it does not have an international legal value. It has a moral value. Now, the international legal value what we have is which addresses Article 49 of Geneva Convention, which says the way they have invoked Article 370, the way they have abrogated Article 370 and abrogated Article 35, that the way they are changing the demography of it, that comes under Article 49 of Geneva Convention, additional Protocol 20, and it also comes under the International Criminal Court, Article 8. So all these international laws are there unless Pakistan, along with its allies and along with other friends, which are human right, on the basis of human right, unless we are able to let the world know. And diplomacy, submitting dossier once doesn't make much difference.
No. Ambassador Saab, let me go to Dr. Adnan. I'll come back to you. Dr. Adnan, what Ambassador Saab is saying, I think earlier on I was also talking about this, that there needs to be our counter narrative to what India is saying. Whether it's about its own policies within its domestic policies, or its policies vis-a-vis Kashmir, or its policies with regard to Pakistan or other neighbors, the hostilities, the interference, all of that, the narrative, the counter narrative that has to go out into the world has to, do you think perhaps it needs a more vigorous, a more concentrated approach at this time? Because again, India, Modi's popularity seems to, at the very least, have suffered a significant blow within India. Do you think all over the world also, if we bring this out now, and perhaps it is the right time to tell this to those in India also that believe in perhaps a moderate India, or perhaps a more friendly India towards its minorities, and perhaps a more sensible India?
Yes, I fully. Actually, Indian narrative has been the same almost since for the last 10 years or so, particularly in the two early regimes of governments of Modi. But Pakistan, though you see, has no doubt tried a lot since 2019. And earlier on also, Pakistan has been a staunch supporter of the Kashmiri people and has been observing the 5th of February also as the day of solidarity with the people of Kashmir. But its real publicity in the world needs to be more vigorous, as you have been saying. And also, I would say that the vigor should also be shown in consistency of the efforts. I mean, that ought not to be one-time effort and then you see there's a lull. Though you see the stand is very right, that is always often repeated as well. But to assemble and to be speaking in front of the top ambassadors here of the main countries about the human rights violation, the legal violations, the killings you see, etc., the denial of the right of self-determination, and to go out in the top capitals of the world and meeting their leaders from time to time very regularly, and then arranging seminars and conferences at the international level where some top scholars from Pakistan and Kashmir particularly can be there and deliver talks, and even in the diaspora. So I would also be taking the same line that you have been suggesting, that you see much more vigorous, consistent, and active and proactive diplomacy. It ought not to be one time, but it should be made on a systematic basis. And only if this has been done regularly, I can tell you that the counter narrative would be automatically prepared. and then showing also that what Indians, the orchestrated assassinations in the foreign countries. So this is also a good time in a way that Pakistan says that India actually is the culprit, and this lays blame on Pakistan on a matter which has been the birthright, I would say, of the people of Indian occupied Kashmir. So what is wrong in that? I mean, every nation would have struggled that kind of a movement. But the point is that if in any circumstances you see the Kashmiris lay down their lives, etc., themselves locally in the area, they would always blame Pakistan as a scapegoat. So I think we should be pointing out this very important point in front of the world media, world leadership, world scholars, and should be publishing small pamphlets and be presenting documentaries about this from time to time, not just once in a year, and making presentations. So if this is done, I believe...
Show the world what India is doing and what India is capable of, the true face of India. One can't deny that. Thank you so much for joining us. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you so much for being with us. Brigadier Retired Dr. Tughral Yamin, thank you for joining us. Dr. Jamil Ahmed Khan, thank you for your very valuable time. Dr. Adnan Sarwar Khan, thank you for being with us today. Overall, of course, we all understand that a lot of what Modi says is hyperbole, knowing that Pakistan, of course, is an extremely powerful enemy. We also are a nuclear nation and we understand that. But of course, we've also seen the response by our Ministry of Foreign Affairs. As usual, Pakistan has acted with grace and restraint. At the same time, telling India that we are fully able and cognizant of where the terrorism is coming from and able to safeguard our own borders effectively. And the world also knows that. That said, the world also knows what India is capable of as far as interference into other countries, not just Pakistan. And the real face of India certainly has been exposed under the Modi regime. The facade of a secular India and a minority-friendly India has certainly broken forever. Thank you so much for joining us today.